Hi boys and girls, all this month we've been working on something that will change the way we speak and act with other people. We're doing whatever we can to make peace. Peace is proving you care more about each other than winning an argument. When you make peace, it's like you're building a bridge between you and the other person. And you're not just looking at things from your side, you're focused also on having things their way too. And you're showing the other person that they're important and valuable. Now, our lesson today comes from a book in the Old Testament titled 1 Samuel. And the heroine in the story is Abigail. And I called her a heroine because she was really brave. She was strong, and when a very tough situation came up, she was really smart about it. So we're going to pick up in the book of 1 Samuel when David was in line to be the king of God's people, but he wasn't king yet. See, several years before, God had promised that David would one day be king. But you know what? Right now, King Saul still ruled Israel. And Saul was very jealous of David. Poor David had to live on the run so that King Saul couldn't get him. Now, David and his men during this time went down to the desert of Paran near the land of a wealthy man named Nabal. Nabal was quite rude and mean, but his wife Abigail, she was wise. At first, Nabal's servants weren't sure what to think about David and his men. They expected that David's men might try to steal from them, but that never happened. In fact, David protected Nabal's shepherds from harm. And David's men kept Nabal's shepherds safe the whole time they were in that part of the country. So then one day, David sends his men to ask Nabal if he would be kind enough to give them some food. David instructed his men to say that they had treated Nabal's men well, and they just wanted to know if he would be kind enough to give them some food. You would think Nabal would remember how David's men kept the shepherds safe, but you know what? Nabal wouldn't share. Let's read together and see what he said. "Who is this David? Why should I give away my bread and water? Why should I give food to men who come from who knows where?" That's in 1 Samuel 25, verses 10 through 11. So when David's men returned home and told David what Nabal had said, David was angry. And David left with about 400 of his men to go see Nabal. David was looking for a fight. And meanwhile, a servant told Abigail what Nabal had done, and Abigail didn't waste any time. She had a brilliant idea. She gathered supplies and lots of food. She loaded raisin cakes and figs and all kinds of food onto some donkeys, and she told her servants, go ahead, she would follow. And then Abigail rode her donkey into a mountain valley where she saw David and his men coming toward her, all 400 of them. David was still very angry. He was still grumbling about exactly what he wanted to do with Nabal. And that's when Abigail got off her donkey and bowed before David. Let's read together what she said, okay? "Let me take the blame myself. Please don't pay any attention to that evil man, Nabal. Sir, the Lord has kept you from killing Nabal and his men. He has kept you from using your own hands to get even." And that's 1 Samuel 25, verses 24 through 26. So Abigail reminded David that God had a big plan for him to be king. What do you think David said? I mean, he was still really angry, and it could go either way because sometimes hearing reason can help us calm down when we're angry, but sometimes it can make us even more angry. Isn't that weird? So raise your right hand if you think David was still angry. Raise your left hand if you think David was not still angry. Well, let's read together what he said. David said to Abigail, "Give praise to the Lord. He is the God of Israel. He has sent you today to find me. May the Lord bless you for what you have done. You have shown a lot of good sense. You have kept me from killing Nabal and his men this day. You have kept me from using my own hands to get even." 1 Samuel 25, verses 32 through 33. David wasn't going to kill Nabal, which means he was not still angry after hearing from Abigail. So if you raised your left hand, give yourself 50 points. And here's the thing. David accepted Abigail's gifts, and he told her to go home in peace. And then he and his men went back the way they came. And are you wondering what happened to Nabal? He died like a week later. And I don't know how, it just says the Lord struck Nabal down. I mean, he paid a really high price for being foolish and greedy, didn't he? But Abigail, God blessed and protected her. And it's just amazing how Abigail handled everything. She decided what to do and acted quickly. She took the blame for Nabal and apologized to David, and she brought gifts to David and the others, all to avoid a huge battle. And if that doesn't sound like a big deal to you, picture this. She rode a donkey out to meet 400 men armed for battle with a very angry David, the one who defeated the giant, by the way, leading them. And she did that on a donkey, and her only weapons were 200 loaves of bread, 300 cakes, a whole lot of roasted grain, and meat and wine. She could have easily stood back and watched things get worse between David and Nabal, but she didn't. She chose to step in to make peace. She saw a big problem, and she chose to be a peacemaker. She chose to be part of the solution, and that's our bottom line today. Let's read it together, okay? Out loud. You can show you care about others by being part of the solution. And God can help us to do that, boys and girls. God is always with us, and He can give us the strength we need as we work to make things right. After all, that's what God does. He makes things right. And here's a really great example of that. I was thinking about that this week. The problem? People in Congo don't have access to clean water. It's an effort every day to get some, and what they get is not like the water we get when we turn the faucet on. Kids in the Congo have to walk 6K every day just to get water. That's the problem. Well, the solution? The Global 6K is a solution, isn't it? With every registration, there's a person on the other side of the world in the Congo that will get clean water for life. That's a really big solution to a hard problem. God cares about those things. Let's end with our memory verse, okay? So let us do all we can to live in peace, and let us work hard to build one another. Romans 14:19. I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.